Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and this evening we'll have a look at the latest from the GFS, the GEM, the ECMWF. We'll have a look at the UKMO office for the pressure charts, and we'll have a look at precipitation and temperature, and we'll also have a look at the GFS Ensembles as well. Now, over the last sort of 5 days or so, we've been including the potential for a cold end to November. In yesterday's video, we saw most of the models actually started to go towards westerly conditions, and now in this evening's models, they're sort of in between. We're seeing some signs of northerly winds and maybe some cold weather, but at the same time that's more toward the extended range 10 days and beyond, whereas up to the shorter time frame, like the next 7 to 10 days, is looking quite westerly. So it does look like this colder pattern keeps getting sort of pushed back in the model time frame, so we'll just have to keep a real close eye on if it does eventually evolve in the shorter term for the end of November. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So if we do have a look at the latest GFS, you can see at the moment we do have generally westerly winds. In the south we've got higher pressure, so it's going to be a bit drier and a little bit milder. However, we're going to have weather fronts pushing through over the next couple of days with rain coming in with low pressure before we do start to build in a bit of a Scandinavian high. Now it's going to be pulling in easterly winds, and they're not going to be bitterly cold easterly winds coming off a relatively mild continent. And you can see the upper airs, it's not massively warm, but it's not massively cold either. However, towards the surface, we're likely to see an inversion, which is basically where the upper air temperatures are actually warmer than the surface temperatures, whereas generally surface temperatures are normally warmer than the upper air temperatures. So it does look like we will be seeing pretty chilly conditions towards the weekend into early next week, but nothing massively cold. If we do move beyond that, you can see generally things are looking westerly. We were seeing signs, potentially around day 10, of seeing high pressure reaching up towards Greenland, and you can see that high pressure is sort of there towards Greenland, but it is much reduced and there's a lot more low pressure around. Beyond day 10, we do have a northwest to southeast alignment of the jet stream, so it does mean generally things will be westerly. However, they're likely to be a little bit colder. Nothing that would bring snow, simply because the air masses aren't quite that cold. Maybe you could see some snow over some higher points, but generally most areas will be sort of mid-single digits. However, beyond that, you do start to see high pressure starting to reach further northwards, low pressure plunging through Europe, and we do see northerly winds, some quite cold northerly winds to be honest in this GFS run, some pretty chilly conditions, some very cold air coming into many central parts of Europe. We see a weather front move through, and we see more colder air as well with a mid-Atlantic ridge. Now this wouldn't be sustained cold, we're not locked in as we don't have the high pressure up towards Greenland, but with a generally amplified jet stream with high pressure out in the mid-Atlantic, we're seeing quite cold conditions come to many parts of Europe. Now, this is a pretty viable option because it's not getting any massive Greenland blocking going, which is very much uncertain, especially this time of year when we generally do have quite strong westerly winds. So I do see this as quite a real scenario in the longer term, sort of in between what we've been seeing over the last few days, not going full-blown Arctic blast with high pressure towards Greenland, real sustained northerlies, but not having straight flat westerlies, very amplified, and we're generally on the colder side of the jet. So very interesting seeing what this latest GFS done. It's sort of in between what it's done recently, where it's been either very cold or like yesterday where it was very mild and westerly. This is sort of in between in the longer term, with things looking quite a lot colder, but not sort of locked in freezer-like conditions. If we do have a look at the GM, see how that does compare, you can see generally very similar over the next few days, with low pressure moving through towards Friday and Saturday, high pressure locking into the north, and then we do go generally westerly once again, and towards the end of the run you do see again a bit of a mid-Atlantic ridge and northerly winds at day 10, some colder air sinking through, but that ridge in the Atlantic is pretty flimsy, so will likely be flattened by this low approaching, but it is generally in quite cold air, so we're probably going to see something similar to the GFS in terms of a northwest-southeast alignment of the jet stream, with generally colder air over the UK. Now, if we did see this high pressure towards northeast Canada try to reach a bit further northwards, that's when we could see some colder conditions come off. But this is day 10 and beyond, so it's very, very uncertain at this stage. If we have a look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. You can see generally again very similar the next few days. High pressure builds in towards the end of this weekend, and then we go generally westerly once again. The low pressure is much closer to the north. It's more likely to be showers and heavy rain in the north than in the south, and right towards the end of the run again we see this mid-Atlantic ridge not getting up towards Greenland but up towards Iceland and plunging down quite cold northerly winds. Pretty chilly air, potentially the -5 line getting through. Could be seeing snow showers for a few areas, especially further northwards, and more widespread frost. So looking much colder on three main models today, especially day 10 and beyond, dissimilar to yesterday. So it does look like the models have flipped back a little bit colder once again. Nothing locked in like we were seeing a couple of days ago with some real freezer conditions where we would be being plunged into sort of polar-like conditions for a good week or two. But northerly winds that would give colder temperatures for a good few days, and you couldn't rule out some snow, especially in the north with these sort of scenarios. So we'll have to keep an eye on how it does play out. We still have the signal of this application of the jet stream with the high pressure ridging further northwards, but doesn't look like on the latest model runs it is getting towards Greenland like it was a few days ago. If we have a look at the UK Met Office run out to 168 hours, again, generally westerly conditions. Then we see high pressure build in, and then we see low pressure generally come back in with westerly winds. Nothing too major there. And again, on the other models, we weren't seeing anything until sort of 200, 240 hours. So not too unexpected that we aren't seeing anything too cold here either. Now, if we have a look at the GFS Ensembles, you can see there is still a lot of scatter. Generally, things do look quite mild up until around the 20th of November. The next 7 to 10 days look generally a couple of degrees above average, but of course, we have that higher pressure towards the end of this weekend, or the end of this weekend is early next week. We're going to have an inversion, so even though upper air temperature is quite warm, it's going to feel a little bit cold on the surface. And of course, further northwards, close to low pressure systems, there will be some colder air mixed in, so temperatures will be down. The one consistent signal we've had over the last few days is precipitation is going to be quite low. In the longer term, towards the 20th, 21st of November, you can see there is a lot of scatter. We have some quite cold ensemble members, including that GFS Operational Run, some going even colder than that. But at the same time, we have a lot of mild ensemble members, and these really haven't shifted this sort of pattern over the last few days. We're seeing this consistently from the 20th of November onwards of a real big sort of split within the ensembles. And again, we'll have to just keep an eye really what happens over the next few days, seeing it sort of resolve day by day. But at this stage, we can't rule out anything massively cold for the end of November, but we're not seeing massive definitive signals for it. If we had maybe 2/3 of the ensembles on board instead of maybe around half, and even that's only half really going an average or below. If we had maybe 2/3 getting down to -5 850 HPA, we could make a more definitive sort of signal that it's getting colder. But at this stage, we're just seeing maybe 5, 6, 7 getting down to -5, and then maybe 10 or 15 staying around average or below. If we do have a look at Glasgow, you can see again very similar over the next 10 days in terms of temperature is going to be above average. We could see it dip below average with some cold fronts moving in, but one big difference is they're going to be precipitation around. Quite heavy rain over the next few days, especially heading towards Friday. We could be seeing some heavy rain once again towards next week and the end of next week as well. And then a lot of scatter dust come in. Some very cold ensembles, some very mild ensembles, and it's just coming out to around average, really, very similar to London. And again, we'll have to keep an eye on how it does develop over the next few days and the next few weeks, heading into the end of November and the start of December. Now, if we do finally have a look at the UK Met Office run, you can see at the moment we do have a few patchy showers around in the Midlands and across northern areas as well, but most areas are generally quite dry. Could see some patchy rain move in from the west tomorrow morning before some heavier rain arrives across the evening or afternoon across Ireland, and then overnight for many areas in the west, spreading through mainly in the north, of course, but some rain heading into the south as well. And that eventually does sort of spin away, and then we see another weather front approach from the north, and that does spread through, and things go generally dry for next week as we do have easterly winds. Could be some thicker cloud and a few showers in the east, but nothing too major, nothing massively heavy in terms of rainfall, but no massive dry days either widely. Perhaps, though, towards the start of next week, we could be seeing more widespread dry conditions with the high pressure building in. Now, if we look at temperatures, you can see today it's around average, 12, 13 degrees in the south, a little bit chilly in the north, 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees. But that's not too really unexpected this time of year as we head into the end of November. Thursday, you can see temperatures maybe 5, 6, 7 degrees in the north, maybe 14, 15 degrees in the south, so pretty mild, but most likely won't feel like that with cloud around and chilly and northwesterly winds. Friday temperatures again, maybe 12, 13 quite widely, maybe 14, 15 far southeast, and a bit colder further northwards. And then by Saturday, widely temperatures average once again 12, 13 degrees. Across the east coast could start to feel a bit chillier, maybe 10 or 11 degrees as we do start to pull in the easterly wind. Keep it Sunday once again, very similar temperatures. And finally by Monday afternoon you can see again widely 10, 11, 12 degrees, few areas staying around 8 or 9, and probably quite chilly on the east coast with easterly winds. So I think nothing massive's happening over the next 5 days. All the interest really is onto that last 10 days of November now. As it looks generally westerly up until then, but there still is a lot of uncertainty for the end of this month. And for all those cold lovers out there, we cannot rule out the chances of seeing something quite cold towards the end of November. I would say it's reasonably likely at this stage, considering the map model output we've been seeing for it. Now, I'm not guaranteeing anything majorly cold, but definitely there is a very good chance we see at least a northerly blast of a good couple days towards the last 10 days of November. That's looking quite likely. But it hasn't resolved yet. It's not guaranteed, and sort of the longevity and severity of any sort of cold spell is, again, still quite up in the air. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.